Hey, what's happening guys? My name is Gabe and this is going to be a quick video on my 3 tips that will make you a successful DM in your next Dungeons & Dragons campaign. And quick little note, DM just means Dungeon Master, but you guys already knew that if you're watching this channel. But anyways, my top 3 tips are: number 1, that rules are guidelines and they're not the law. Number 2, to be flexible, to be invested in your idea but not married to it. And 3, D&D is a collaborative storytelling game, so you want to make your story about your players and their characters. Yeah, it's cool to go and flesh out some more ideas into your campaign, which is fantastic, but again, who's ultimately playing? Is it out of your enjoyment as a DM? Which, yeah, of course there's some degree of that, but most people are going to be players. So you want to make sure your players are having fun. But you know, we're going to get more into that. But just a quick discussion. So my first tip, that rules are guidelines and not the law. Something that kind of gets some people when they're playing Dungeons & Dragons is that all the little mechanics, the numbers, the dice, all the little types of rules and technicalities. Yeah, you know, the thing is that you could be super duper by the book, which is totally fine in some cases, but if it's at the expense of your players' fun, yeah, that's going to determine the success of your campaign, if people actually want to continue playing it or not. Because, I mean, not going to say that, hey, you're allowed to fudge the rules and just kind of, I don't know, fudge the dice as a DM, but you are. You're basically the god of that world and you can do whatever you want. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're fair to your players too, and that they have some sort of understanding of why things are the way they are. Yeah, you can go and bend some things a little bit, but you don't want to tweak them too much. You want to still have that consistency in those rules that are set in place. But again, the rules are guidelines and not the law. So that's the way I would sum up my first little tip. The second one is to be flexible with your storytelling. You want to be invested in it, in some of your ideas and how you want to flesh out the world, but at the same time you don't want to get married to it. And what I mean by that is you will always, as a DM, typically have something where your players will do something so out of the box that the idea that you made is not going to matter anymore. Derailing is a real thing. If you guys play Dungeons & Dragons regularly, you'll see that okay, the players might do something that's totally different that you could not expect, or they'll find some sort of strange solution or get sidetracked by a side quest and then that ends up becoming the main quest. I mean, there's all sorts of different things that happen, but as a DM, you're the one that helps facilitate the story. So you want to be flexible with the way that your players conduct themselves, the way that they go and play, and the way that they just want to carry out the story too. So you can have a base idea and a general guideline for them to play in, kind of like a sandbox, but the thing is that you don't want to be like, this is how this thing has to go, this is the way the scenario has to run. And because otherwise, when you're on like a rail system where you're just kind of like, the players cannot really make their own decisions and it's just a straight path of, I guess, going through the adventure. I mean, sometimes it'll work depending on how skilled the DM is, but typically you just want to be flexible and it makes it more fun anyways. So yeah, be flexible, be invested to your idea but not married to it. And then finally, my third tip for new DMs is that you need to remember that Dungeons & Dragons is a collaborative storytelling game. And so the thing is that you want to, of course, incorporate some of your ideas as the DM to set some consistency with that world that you made and which the players will interact in, but at the same time you also want to make your story about your characters, and not your characters, but your players and their characters. Because ultimately they are the main characters. It's an adventure about them. And then when you even take a step back in the storytelling aspect, I mean, everyone wants to be the hero. I mean, that's just it. But if you're making an NPC and you're making it all about them, sometimes your players will just they'll lose interest in your story in general, because it's kind of like, well, I'm learning about someone else's story, but I'm not doing a whole lot, you know? So in order to have them more invested and more focused and more immersed in your world that you set for them as the DM, you want to go and make your story and your campaign more about the players and their characters more so than your NPCs. At least for me, that's what I figured has the most success, because yeah, people want to have an epic story made about them. That's just it. But yeah, anyways, to recap on my 3 biggest tips for new DMs about to run their first campaign. The first the first tip is that rules are guidelines and not law. The second one, to be invested and flexible with your idea, but not married to it. And the third one is that D&D is a collaborative storytelling game, and so you want to go and focus on your players and their characters in order to keep your players interested, engaged, and in with the story. Alright, that's everything. So again, my name is Gabe. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments box below, or send an email or a message and we'll get back to you. But other than that, have a fantastic day and enjoy your weekend. Take care.